putting an end to identity politics. This is the Kevin Jackson Radio Show.
Hey, fellow patriots, you're listening to the Kevin Jackson Show on KJRadio.com. My name is Liz Matory. I'm your guest host. Please follow me at Liz Matory, which is LizMatory on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you so much for hanging in with me today. I had a wonderful time. For this last segment, I wanted to do something a little different. We wanted to talk about, the importance of femininity and masculinity. We are continuously seeing sort of this crazy time now that, for me as a woman, I have to identify as a cisgendered woman because I don't have any plans nor have I ever thought of being something else other than what I was born as. Again, I do respect and appreciate people who have an individual sort of interest, need, yearning, belief that they want to be or ought to be something else than they weren't born. That's an individual liberty coming from a libertarian mindset. I know that a lot of you might have more of a religious sort of, Christian mindset, which I respect as well. But beyond the whole transgender stuff, I kind of we want to go back to okay, aren't there things like women and things like men? And isn't there such a thing as femininity and masculinity? And aren't those things not bad? I have technically a lower voice for a woman, but look, I'll just tell you this right now. I'm attracted to men and I love, kid you not, I tell you what, the way that my life has gone, I'm a lot of times in the driver's seat, whether it's, being a lawyer and being a businesswoman and all that stuff. But the moment that I don't have to be in control and I not only can be in the passenger seat, but yes, trust my male counterpart to do not only a good job, but a better job than I welcome it. For example, driving. I'm an alright driver, but I love not driving and I love not having to drive. I know, again, it has nothing to do with femininity and masculinity, but I love it when a guy opens a door for me. I actually had to adjust to that. One of my exes, so funny. I remember we were coming back to my apartment and I was we were carrying, stuff from the market. And he literally had to fight me in order to not only help me with my bags, but also open the door. And, again, I had already told you I grew up in a very sort of liberal environment. We were sort of raised to say oh yeah, women have to do everything, we need to do everything all the time, everywhere. And I don't know if it's innate, again, I don't know where it comes from, but I remember there was a certain time growing up, you think one way, but then when you start experiencing life, I don't know when that is. And again, there are people who are a lot more learned and understand the world a little bit more than me, but for my experience, it was around your 20s to mid-20s, you start kind of letting go. And I say that because it's when you're raised in this environment, you feel as if you have to always fight for stuff. You always have to prove yourself because you were told, and maybe there have been times where people have questioned your ability because you're a woman. It's, again, so welcoming to know that, it's okay to be taken care of and both sides. I think on the flip side, when the guys, what I've heard is it's really hard to be a man because, you're supposed to expect it to be really tough all the time. And, sometimes when you're vulnerable, it's a very hard sort of, experience because you've been trained to be one way. Again, I don't know what any of this is anymore. And I guess maybe that's the point of it. Some of it is, purposefully, confusing folks and, making sure that we, don't understand what's up and what's down and, how to interact with each other. But I do think that we need to, be a lot more mindful of how not only do we treat each other, but also how we expect to sort of be treated. you know? I mean, if anything, sometimes, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, like I I remember when I was in law school, you know, there's a certain time where we were joking. We were like, oh yeah, you know, we're going out in the city in DC. Like, some of my friends refused to tell people that, or tell guys at places that they were in law school, because they felt like it was intimidating. And I remember, you know, again, like, it's not necessarily, there's something about it. It's something about, like, you can be who you are and you can, you know, do the things you can, because I don't think you should be restricted on jobs or opportunities based on your gender, race, ethnicity, all that. But is there an issue when a woman kind of like is more educated or has a high-paying job, and has that had an effect on, you know, male-female relationships? I don't know. I mean, again, like, I'm not talking about homosexual relationships. It's a whole nother conversation, but technically right now I'm only talking about heterosexual, cisgendered people who are in relationships, a guy and a girl and a girl and a guy. You know, it is what it is. But I do think that we are, you know, I think Kevin spoke about it this week, that there's like an attack on maleness. And I also would argue there's also an attack on femaleness as well. You know, I get really irked, and I told you I wasn't going to talk about transgenderism, but I am going to anyway, where there's all this stuff about like how, like, you know, men have periods and women have, you know, phalluses, and you're like, no, that's not, no, like, when can we, where is it written or believed that we absolutely have to positively have to switch genders and switch sexes? I don't understand how that was such a, all of a sudden, an agenda. Again, if you think that you would identify and you're very uncomfortable in your own skin and all of that, and you want to go through all of that, you know, difficulty and surgery, so be it. But it's so now forced upon us now. And I think that's the problem. I honestly, like, if I were, you know, transgender, I would be upset about how much of an agenda my life has become for everybody else. You know, I don't like the fact that, you know, people, it's more of a, it's like we have to change everything now. You know, for us to like feel like, oh, you know, heterosexuality is like a bad thing, or the fact that, you know, like, I love it when, you know, guys open the door for me and I'm like now a horrible person. Like, it's just freaking stupid. And I just wish that we would spend a little bit more time with just being ourselves, and it's okay for ourselves to be identified as the gender that you were born, or that sex that you were born. And then it's okay for you to be like, you know, have a softer side or have a soft side. I remember, again, right when we were all in grad school, that's also the same time that women are at the, I guess, the beginning of their fertility or in the middle of their fertility. And so you think about, you know, getting married, and then when you get married, you want to have children, and then you want to have children, you want to actually, you know, mother them and spend more time with them. And oh, heaven forbid, you want to homeschool them. What happens to your career? Just at the same time as you're developing your career and, you know, you're finishing school and maybe you're finishing grad school, it's right at the same time that you're supposed to be developing a family. That's sort of why, again, I get upset about the whole, like, women's right to choose, because what happens if the woman chooses to keep the child? What happens if the woman chooses to abstain? What happens if the woman chooses to stay at home with her children? What happens when, you know, the woman decides, you know, to marry said guy? You know, we never really talk about the more traditional choices that people, women specifically, might want to make. You know, and then for the guys, like, I have not yet met a guy who can provide, if you will, and both of us will eventually have to work, you know, but I don't know. I mean, I've never actually thought about never having to work or not having to work. That's just not how I've thought. I mean, I'm still would write and still would express myself in different ways, but, you know, has our economy shifted a lot because of the different roles that people play? You know, and a lot of, like, the stay-at-home guys and stay-at-home dads get a lot of flack for, wanting to, be parents to their children. It's really fascinating if you really break it down. And we could talk about this stuff forever and ever because obviously it's just apparently not going anywhere. But I really appreciated our time together, and I guess I will connect with you next week, and have a good one, okay? Take care.
He won't stop until he's the top-rated radio talk show host in America.
What kind of weird competitive freak are you?
This is the Kevin Jackson Radio Show.